Okay, welcome everybody to the Your Gifts Matter podcast. Today I am here with Lori Beard. She's from Steadfast-forward, and she is a professional speaker, self-published author, and facilitator. And I just want to thank you for being here, Lori, and looking
You're
forward
welcome.
to
Thanks for
chatting with you
having me.
today. Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. So why don't you start off and just let us know a little bit more about yourself, who you are, and where you're from.
Yes, thank you for having me again. Sorry I interrupted, and I am so happy to be here to add value to your audience. I am Lori, and I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, island in the Caribbean, and I've lived in Texas for more than 20 years now. I'm very happy being here, raising a family, being married for almost 26 years, and I have 8 children. And then I decided to go to school, and I became a life coach and a clinical hypnosis practitioner, and I love it.
It's eight children. That's amazing. What is that like, having a family of 8 kids?
It's fun. I
Yeah,
wouldn't change it for anything.
yeah,
They all came one at a time, so
yeah.
no multiples and things like that. And that was great years, great times.
Awesome. And so you grew up in Puerto Rico?
I did.
Yeah. And then you moved. When did you move to Texas?
So we got married, and let's see, when did we move? It was 21 years ago. So we were already married. We had already 3 kids, and then we came here for other opportunities, different opportunities. So
if you look back at your time in Puerto Rico growing up, what one or two struggles that kind of you would want to highlight or talk about with us today?
Very good questions. Yeah. So that was my upbringing, right? My years of formation. So that's a great question. And I came from a great, beautiful household and family, except for my mom was divorced. So she was a single mother, working hard and providing for her 4 children. I am the youngest of 4 children. And my grandma would be home helping with all of us. And my grandma was divorced. My mom was divorced. I had aunts that were divorced. And I saw this pattern of men specifically. In my case, right? I love men. I've been happily married for all those years. And I have 6 out of the 8, 6 are boys. But I just happened to see this pattern with men being addicted or having these behaviors. And I was like, wow, they have inflicted so much pain and poor things. What is wrong with them? And I was always wondering about my dad, and I didn't see him living at home. And that part was challenging and definitely made an impact or left a mark on me and the conflicts that I had. So self-esteem, self-confidence, issues with worthiness. It all boils down to self-esteem, right? But that was, beautiful island. I loved the island. Everything was great, but that part of it was a little bit challenging.
For sure. How did you cope? How did you cope as a child in that type of environment?
So this is how I cope. Again, Grandma did whatever she could to help us to be happy, etc. But looking back, right? You get raised, and then you're raised in this environment, and you don't know any difference, right? Because that's what you have until you look back and you're like, oh my goodness, this is what that meant. This is what this meant, or this is how I manifested certain things. So looking back now, very much asthmatic, and I think those asthma attacks were more emotional. And of course, there was something, I bet, physiological, but then it was triggered maybe more by emotions. And I look back and I remember that when I had the asthma attacks and asthma episodes at some point in my life, it was very frequent. That's when my mom stopped everything and stayed with me, or took me to the doctor, stayed with me at the hospital. And I was wondering, and I wonder, maybe this is subconsciously what I did to get my mom for me, only for me, and have a little bit of time with her. And anxiety attacks, I think, happened too. I didn't know that's what it was, because I would get into a dark circle with the power of my imagination, thinking the worst, and especially worrying about my mom. she was gone a lot working and going to school for her to get a new degree and things like that. And I would worry a lot about her. How did your question was, how did I cope? Well, I think this is how I coped. Being very self-sufficient, also playing sports. Volleyball was my thing, or I was always riding my bike in the backyard by myself. I was always by myself and thinking a lot. And I think that's the way I was able to cope. Either, emotionally, I think was the panic attacks. And then physically, I think it was with asthma or wanting to stay healthy and afloat, because also there was a sense of overprotection. So my mom wanted me to be careful and things like that. And I was like, no, I'll be fine,
Right.
And if there was a little breeze at night, no, you need to wear your sweater or your jacket. I'm like, no, this is an island and I love to be barefoot. And I,
Yeah, right.
but trying to be strong and stay afloat amongst all that.
So those thoughts that you were having, you said you're by yourself a lot thinking. What were you thinking about?
So if there was a TV show that had murder or somebody died in the TV show, I would say, oh, what if that happens to my mom? Yeah. I was also in a private school, Catholic school, and we're not of that religion. And so my mom was single. She was a divorced person with 4 kids, which that was a lot for those times in that period of time. And then we were not of their religion. So so I was always thinking, oh, we're different. We're so different. We always are going against the current. So those were the things that I would think about.
Yeah. And what in that culture, what was the values around divorce or the beliefs around divorce? Like, did that also impact your family because you're a divorced family?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially in the environment of a private Catholic school.
Right.
Yes, that was like, oh my goodness. Yes, you stick out like a sore thumb. You guys are quite different. Lots of love anyways, and my mom was there because she knew she was going to give us a better education and environment with kind of like the discounts she would get as a teacher there, because she was a teacher there. So that was very smart thinking. But then against those odds, the more affluent teachers that were just teachers there because their husbands had great jobs, right? And they were just there to pass time and teach, and I bet make money too, of course. But it's not like they needed it, or seemingly they didn't
Right.
want it to be. Is that where mom, it was like she needed to do it and all that. And there was a big difference in that society, like you're saying, that culture at the moment. So we always, and you know what, this is nothing, there's, I bet, worse stories than mine out there. But it's just what what happened to you, how you assimilated it, how it formed you, right? And it depends on what we're going to do with it, right?
For sure, definitely. And you mentioned that you're your youngest child, and there's four of you total, right? So
Right.
what was the dynamic among you and your siblings during all this?
It was great. I think
Yeah.
that's what really helped. We were myself, the one right before me is like 18 months apart. We were buddies, playmates. Also my sister, 3 years older than me. It's like boy, girl. I'm the youngest. So the oldest is a boy, always in his world. And the age difference was significant enough that for a while there, he was doing his thing. But my sister and I were tight. We would talk about everything. We slept in the same room, and we had a lot of fun. And also with my brother. So that really was like a safe haven, being with my siblings and having fun. And also my grandma did a great job being like the stay-at-home mom while my mom provided for us.
Definitely. Well, it's good to have that support from your siblings. It sounds like they're very close knit. Yeah.
Yes.
And so not having a father, who were the father figures? Who were the men that showed up in your life? And what were the values and beliefs around men that you learned as a child growing up?
Great question. Oh my goodness. So forever, I think I always say my grandma was the stay-at-home mom, right? And then my mom was that male aspect of providing and all that, right? But then now that you asked that, so she remarried when I was 11. So
Okay.
that was a big, big, wonderful thing that happened. Big blessing. He's my stepdad, but I consider him my dad. I love him so much because he contributed. He helped, raised us this after that, and that was very good. And they're still happily ever after. They're still happily married. But now that you mentioned that, I looked up to many professors or school teachers that were male. You know how
Yeah.
the majority of that population is women. Well, when I had in middle school or high school even, I had male teachers, and I would always listen to them and their stories and what they had to say, and also church leaders. Since you ask, now that I think about this, I had very good mentors from church. They were amazing. They gave me good advice. And my dad wasn't very into the same religion or church as my stepdad. So he wasn't, so that church and religion is very big into my values and belief system. So those men were kind of like my mentors and leaders that way. And I respected them so much. And they gave me great, great advice at the moment and encouragement and life lessons. They were amazing. So very good question. Nobody's ever asked me that question.
Great. It's good to have the support, and good to it sounds like there was some really strong female figures and male figures in your
Yes.
growing up to help mentor you and guide you to where you are today. During those moments of anxiety and the real struggles that were coming up with the panic attacks and that, what were you believing about yourself or your world, the world around you that was going on?
That's probably why religion plays an important key, because
Yeah.
I always held on to that faith, that idea of a higher power, higher universe, like taking care of me. And while, of course, as humans, right, this humanness, we go through these moments. That's what kind of always gave me hope. Like, okay, it's gonna be okay. I went through that, spiral. And this is like very young, maybe between maybe 4 and 8 years old. And then, I don't know if you ask, the thing is, how I coped with that was writing in journals. Oh my goodness, I have a journal since I was 8 that helped me so much tap into my inner wisdom, organize my thoughts, and then talk about my fears also. And that's very healing. In my book and with my clients, I have a chapter only writing specifically to persuade the readers or my clients on how important it is to journal. One thing I did too, since I was a little girl, was close the door in the bathroom and look at myself in the mirror and have conversations with myself. Whether that might be crazy, sounds crazy or not, I just look back and I think, well, that was actually kind of healthy to have this out loud conversations with myself, or even like in my mind, I would look at myself and have this conversation with myself, trying to deal with all this. And that kind of helped.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you were really getting to know yourself, right? And taking that time and looking at ourselves in the mirror can sometimes, be, it can be tough to really look ourselves directly in our own eyes and see what's going on. And I think it sounds like that really, it did help you in getting to know who you are and appreciating who you are. And your note on journaling there, yeah, like I believe in journaling is a powerful tool, and it comes across as something very simple to do, but it's amazing because when we're journaling, we're using so much of our learning abilities, right? It's very cathartic to be writing with our hand, to be seeing it, to be saying it, in our either out loud or in our head as we're doing it. It's a very powerful tool. It's great that you're sharing that with your clients, because it can be so helpful.
So Aaron, that is so true to the point. There's two things, going back to journaling and the mirror thing. I have a little mirror in my office. I packed it today, right before this, this interview. I was just sharing with Aaron that I just packed my brick and mortar 4 walls office. We needed to close my office. Anyways, we're going more virtual now, I guess. But I have a beautiful antique mirror in my office, and like you, I'm passionate to serve professionals, to help people understand, and these wonderful professionals understand their value and continue investing in their personal growth. And when I've had many professionals in my office and I say, sit down and look at this mirror, they have a hard time.
Yeah.
They can't stare at that mirror. As I was coach, trained to coach, this exercise is supposed to be for 5 minutes. You're supposed to look at yourself for 5 minutes in the mirror. I reduced it for like 30 seconds in my office because they could not stand. The first thing they would see is their physical traits, too many wrinkles, too many baggy eyes. I can't. Or the negative things. And it's funny because we basically look at ourselves in the mirror every day while we're brushing our teeth or grooming ourselves. But it's that different kind of way to look at yourself, and they have a hard time.
Yeah.
They have a hard time. And it's very sad.
And as a child, did you experience that? When you first started doing it, were you looking at maybe more of the negative aspects first and then progress from there? Or?
No, you know what?
Yeah.
At those moments, that came kind of later as I was maybe a teenager, and I was always very skinny and tall, and people would call me, I looked like a giraffe or a flamingo, But back then, it was like I was my best buddy. Like, okay, we need to talk, It's like, we need to talk now. And nothing like that. It was more as a sounding board, like me expressing myself. Maybe those things of self-doubt and things like that came later. But at those moments, that's what I mean. I think that was very healthy because looking back, I don't know, I just did that. And no, I didn't look at the flaws or whatever. I was just talking to myself, venting about XYZ situation, usually on relationships, usually on other people's behaviors and things like that.
Yeah, that's great. Using yourself as your own sounding board. That's fantastic. So when that self-doubt showed up later on in when you were a teenager, what was going on then?
So then I started realizing things like all this is so subconscious. And as a clinical hypnosis practitioner, it's just fascinating to me. I didn't do a lot of the healing, like deep purging until like after I had the 8 kids and I started school doing homework to be a life coach and also doing hypnosis, because they helped us do these. So it's a journey. It's a whole journey, right? Of getting to know thyself, right? Like the Greek quote says, know thyself, and to heal from all of those scars. And so it's been a journey. So I guess during my teenage years, you depend a lot. And as girls, of course, we rely on what you guys think about us and things like that, right? Or what your classmate told you. And so also through all this, but I guess I didn't know how to pinpoint it when I was younger. Also my value, because when I think my dad left us, he chose another route. He chose another person. He chose having more kids, over me, over us. That really, it was something hovering there that I look back and think, yeah, that was a great part of it. I mean, and divorce is something super common these days. I mean, it's super common. And I understand that. I'm not the only child that has come from a divorce family, but at the same time, it leaves a mark. It leaves an impact in your life. We can't sugarcoat it, right? And even I hear that even children that are adults and gone, when their parents divorce, they go through a hard times too. And anyway, so it's just different phases of acknowledging and being aware and then healing or letting go of whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, I hear you in that struggle of hearing about your birth dad remarrying and having other children and that. Like, was he part of your life still along the way? Was he still an active part, or was?
Interesting. Yes. Not the way it should have been, but I knew who he was. We would see each other maybe once a year.
What was that like? What was that like for you?
So it was fascinating to me because this individual that was my father. There's so much we have in common. And of course, you're asking your mom, what happened? Or tell me more. And my mom was the kind of wonderful woman, honorable, like she didn't want to say things bad about him and things like that, even though she suffered a lot because of his choices and behaviors. But we're not dumb, me and my siblings would talk and gather information, right? And sometimes he would show up to who is now his wife, and he would show up with her at home to pick us up. And that didn't go well. Right. And I love this lady. She's amazing. And till this day, we talk on the phone, and I check on my dad because he's having health issues now and things like that. But it didn't go well when my mom, so it was kind of like, oh, what's going to happen today if he shows up and picks up and, it's not going to go well. But then she got over that, and she started accepting, and hanging out with him was fun. He is a fun person. He lives life, having fun. And I think that side of me, that sense of humor, and side of me, goes along with his personality, or comes from him. And it was just this wonderful, funny, fun gentleman that would show up sometimes, and we would go out with him, and it was okay. It was never deep, like a deep relationship, but it was fun. I knew he was my dad, and we found it like a little trip, fun vacation to go with him once in a lifetime, not very often, but it was okay.
It sounds like he gave you some moments of just being okay, just to just have fun and maybe forget about everything else that's going on, and just embrace what's just the joy of life in some ways, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what was the turning point for you when all this, like, what actually shifted all this self-doubt in that, where you were able to look at your struggle differently? And it sounds like you actually were able to look at it differently all throughout. Like, it's pretty amazing as a child to be able to be doing your own work in front of the mirror and journaling and that. But was there a defining moment that really shifted things, where you progressed to your, where you're at today as a life coach and a hypnotherapist and that?
Okay, this goes a little bit deeper, and I have not said something that I will say now. Through all these years in my childhood, my mom would take in, for seasons, in maybe summers and things like that, at some cousins in the house to help my aunt. I told you, like, my aunts were divorced and things like that. So one of my cousins molested me. Oh, and that was also something that I talked a lot about in the mirror, but again, not very conscious, because we suppress so much, and ego stands in the way. And that's why I love what I do with hypnosis, because when ego is put to a trance state of consciousness, the subconscious mind heals way better. But so the turning point was through the years, and within my marriage, something happened that triggered that molesting, that part of my life that came to the surface. And as I was like, what is going on? And I was holding that against this individual. I think I was seeing this individual as my predator. And then that kind of came to the surface. And this is when somebody told me, no, you need help. You need help. Something's really happening. And see, Aaron, it's so great that I had been already done all that. Yeah. But it doesn't matter how much work you do, if those things, I call them baggage. Oh, we can't see this very well now, but it's like a mini trash can I have here. Yeah. It's like so much baggage and so much trash we keep suppressing and hiding, like under the rug, that this is another layer. This is something else that I had inside of me. And they told me, no, you need help. Somebody that cared enough for me told me, you need help. And that was kind of like a rude awakening, because my anger spells too. And this happened when this came to the surface. My anger spells and things like that came to the surface, and I started receiving help.
And what was it like to, like the person that came to you, like to hear them say you need help? Like, were you immediately open to realizing that, yes, I need help? Or were you, because sometimes when people come to us and say you need help, a lot of times people will push back and say, no, I don't need anything right now.
It depends on the source, right? And the source. And this was my own child.
Oh, wow.
And when my own child, my
Yeah.
oldest, as a teenager, he made a stupid mistake, and this is who I'm thinking, and I think this is what triggered everything. I was lecturing him and things like that, and I says, "Mom, I understand. I know I made a mistake and things like that, but you also need help because you're not
Wow.
knowing how to deal with me and things like that." And I was like, boom, it was like cold water thrown,
Right.
and my anger and my rage was so much that it was held against him when he
Mm.
didn't have all that fault.
Yeah.
And him, and also a church leader told me, no, you need help. You need help. Between him and this other person, and of course my husband, going through all this with
Yeah.
me, being super patient. And that's when I realized, and I started going to traditional counseling. I started going to counseling, and that helped a lot.
Yeah.
But again, I've been saying it's a journey. So what I want the audience to think is about that, right? Their journey. And not until we leave this world, we're going to continue to grow and heal. And that's the opportunity we need to give ourselves. We need to give ourselves permission to go through all this.
That's so
And like,
important, right? It's so important that we're not going to fix everything immediately, right? It's a process, it's a journey, and to be patient. Yeah, it's a good message.
and when you go to a store that's going through remodeling, store, building, hotel, whatever, and they say, pardon our progress, right? It's like that. When you're healing, when you have given yourself permission, when somebody says in this building, okay, it's time to invest money, resources, and time into destroying this site here to build this site there, that is what I want you to think about. It's so worth it to go through a remodeling process in your house, if you're going to resell it, or if you just want to continue living in there in a more beautiful environment. Your house, a building, whatever it is, remodeling takes effort, and it involves change. And so many people resist change. And I've always been very prone to evolve and change, as you see, talking to myself and confronting the situation and talking about it. But there's so many things that we like to suppress that it still takes time, effort, investing in a good coach, mentor, practitioner. But it's so worth it because it's life-changing.
Definitely. So, how would you articulate the gifts then? Like especially going through what you went through with, the traumatic event with
Mm-hmm.
your cousin in that. Like, what gifts, and this could be ones that you've been accessing along the way, would you say are like the key ones that are true to you?
Learned from all of these experiences, or
Yeah. Yeah.
so tapping into that sense of always wanting to know about human behavior, and and letting go, being forgiving. I mean,
Yeah.
being forgiving and letting go is very, very key, very important. And that's a gift I have discovered from me. um, I allow myself to feel what I feel. At the same time, I don't wallow in it, and I don't dwell in them. Now, when there's awareness, I don't dwell in them, and I want to find a way to resolve it, to move forward. And that's a big gift. Always looking for the good. Always looking for, okay, this is what happened. How do I step out of this?
Hmm.
And once somebody tells me, like my son told me that, I think I thank him so much, because that was even another hurdle, right? Another time where the door was opening for me to tap into my greatest self, once I let go of all this baggage and trash, like I showed you earlier. So yeah, so we have so many gifts inside of us, and we need to allow to let go those things that we can't have control over. But what we can have control over is to get better, feel better, let go, talk through things so we can heal. How about you, Aaron? Can I ask you, is there a similar, how did you overcome something very quick? No, I don't mean to,
I want to
but
focus
it's
on you,
like,
but depression was my struggle, and it took being open. I journaled a lot, and listening to people that I needed help, and listening to myself that I needed help, and be open to doing the healing work, and recognizing that if I come out of it, this time, that it may show up again, and it's okay. That
Oh
I
yeah.
learned in the moments, the periods of time that I was in my depression, I actually learned so much about myself because it actually forced me to just um, talk to myself, similar to what you were doing, right? And get to know who I am. So, um, but I hear you saying in your gifts, you talked about letting go and forgiving. I also see openness, like to have your own son come to you and tell you that you need help. Like there's an openness there to just allow, uh, to allow whatever's coming to you to be open to the message, right? Or to, to the next step. Yeah, it's huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, why don't you share a little bit about how you're helping your clients? I know, like right now, as we record this, we're all going through this global pandemic with COVID-19. Like, is there specific ways that you're helping people through this, but also and beyond as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been great shifting, realizing that, I wasn't able to go to my four walls, my office, and turning things into virtual more. I was already doing a lot of virtual work, but it's been fascinating. It's been great to continue sharing that passion. And I hope you feel it, and I hope I'm
Yeah,
transmitting it.
definitely. Yeah.
But that is a great opportunity. So things are happening, and you're professionals out there, and if you've been in the corporate world and this has hit you hard because now your job or your position is not available anymore, you got fired, whatever it is, use this as a time for reset. Think about purpose and think about passion. Think about when you go to a library or a bookstore, which area do you go to? Which books are you going to grab the most because that's your passion? Is it you're going to check out a book about gardening? You're going to check out a book about cooking, whatever it is. Are you passionate about video games? And could you monetize that? Could you do something with that? So it's time for you to reevaluate your life and think, how is it that you want to move forward? Despite whatever it's happened, we're going through a global crisis. But I know for sure, if you're listening, that you have gone through your own crisis that you have overcome, right? That you have been able to conquer. Use those powers, tap into that strength that you had from within that helped you overcome that, so you can stay innovative, creative, and know how to move forward. So you can continue being a leader in your field or in your industry with your great attitude, with your attitude of hope, so that you can create something new. So that is my message. You need to think about your purpose. So purpose is the reason or the way behind our performance, right? Primarily for others, but passion is about the emotions and the motivation and what makes one feel good. So what's your purpose and passion? You need to tap into that. And you need to revamp your daily intentions to love what you do. And I have my little formula with LOVE. It's a policy, Aaron, to step
Policy.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a little policy or method to get out of the going through the motions mode and live each life with intentions. You want me to share you what the LOVE method
Yeah.
is?
Let's hear it. Yeah.
So it's just leadership. Are we showing up as leaders? L stands for leadership. Are we showing up as the leaders we need to be for others to follow into good things? O is for obsess. Are you obsessed to the point that I'm so obsessed about mindset and about what I do and about sharing my message? Are you that obsessed out there, with what you do every day? Even before this happened, did you wake up excited and obsessed with what you were going to do? So L is for leaders. O is for obsessed. V is for valor. Valor or courage. Are you courageous enough? Are you valiant enough for you to conquer, take risks, okay, and tackle your days with that passion? And then E is my word of the year, because sometimes goals and resolutions can be overwhelming. So I decided this year to think of one intention, one word, and it's execution. So E is for execution. Just do it. Do it, do it, do it. Whatever it is that you've been wanting to do all your life, but you don't think no, my mom told me I was never going to make money with that. Do it. There's so many ways, tools, and resources out there for you to escalate for you to turn that from passion to profit, and for you to live the best life. Remember, today is the first day of the rest of your life. So happy new year.
Yeah.
And you can recreate yourself with
That is
love.
that is so powerful. I love the acronym for love. That is so good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I actually appreciate you reminding people to reflect on the fact that they've gone through other struggles. They've gone through struggles. It may not feel as big as what we're going through right now, but you're still going to access the same gifts, the same abilities within you to move through them, and you may even find others that you hadn't really utilized fully, but they're going to present themselves. And that passion that you talked about, which in that acronym, it speaks to the obsession, right? And what a great analogy with the bookstore. To wherever you gravitate to in the bookstore is a good reflection of what you're passionate about, right? And that, because I think sometimes we can get lost in trying to analyze what our passion is and doing all these different worksheets and a simple exercise. Okay, so you walk into a bookstore, where what's calling you, what area of the bookstore is calling you. That's all you need to know, right? That's so good.
What do
Yeah.
you find yourself doing most? What kind of YouTube videos are you watching? I
Yeah.
mean, and there's the distraction, and there's the times when we spend, without intention, and scrolling. And I'm not talking specifically about that,
Yeah.
but if somebody tells you, or what is it that your passion and your interest lays, and where you have knowledge that you could share forward, and that is another way to look at it, since we cannot go to the bookstores now or libraries.
Exactly. But yeah, where online are you going to
Mhm.
search for books or movies or videos and that kind of thing? Yeah. So how can people find you? Remind us again where you're based out of,
I'm Dallas, Texas, in the U.S.
and how can people find you and learn more about what you do and how you can help?
Definitely, yeah. So you can do Lori at loribeard.com, like you see in the screen, Lori at loribeard.com, and definitely schedule a complimentary, obligation-free discovery session at schedule.loribeard.com.
That's perfect. That's it. And then you're not limited by people only being in your area. I'm assuming you can help people anywhere in the world virtually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Where is your client base all over the world right now? Are they?
Yeah, so I've had from Switzerland, Spain.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating. I've done a lot of work also at the UK, or not at, but from the UK virtually. I love this, and I was just interviewed from 2 people from Canada in the last couple of weeks. So this is fun.
Yeah. Great. Go Canada. Yeah. Good stuff. So just in closing, is there, and I know you've shared that analogy around love, which I think is fantastic, but is there anything else you'd want to share as far as if we have somebody that's in the corporate world right now, and whether they're just struggling with the job security, or they're struggling with the idea that they're not really doing what they love, or they want to progress in the organization they're with and they're not sure how to do that, uh, what would you say is one key way for them to access the gifts inside of them to go after it?
Yes, great question. So own up to your own choices. If this is the choice you've made, to stay working for corporate and things like that, be your best, do your best, hang in there, and endure it well. But then remember that life is a fun journey that we only live right now at this moment, and it depends on you. How is it that you're going to move from here on to live a life of personal joy and professional fulfillment? So take advantage of what's happening right now. Do that mental reset. Do all that emotional purging, right? In most parts of the world is springtime, spring clean your mind, your heart, right? And know thyself so that you can empower yourself to move forward in a way that when you look back, you're going to say, I'm glad I did this. I'm glad that I made the change. I did the remodeling because it's very worth it.
That's fantastic.
It is.
That's so good. That's so good. And one thing I just wanted to highlight is, isn't it ironic that with in this day and age, all the technology like we're using right now, it's forcing us to look at ourselves, right? We're actually having to look in the mirror, essentially, as you had talked about, and speak to ourselves and look at all the great things about who we are, wrinkles and all.
Absolutely. And
All right.
embrace it and love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Laura. I really appreciate your time today, and just for your openness just to share all that you've gone through, and give us an idea of what it took for you to get to where you are today. I can imagine there's going to be people listening that can relate and be able to take those steps and use that love policy that you mentioned, for sure.
Well, thank you. It was my pleasure. It was such an honor to be your guest, and you are so good. You like to listen. You like to listen. That's amazing. So thanks for the opportunity, letting me share, and you have a great story too. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Lori.